Okay, good morning, Friday, April 17th, here in House Transportation. We're looking at our miscellaneous motor vehicle S326. I have two things I'd like to accomplish in this hour is as much as we can. Let's review and thumbs up and thumbs down the sections that we agree on or that are all set. Make sure we're clear on the ones that we need more testimony on and try to update you on what I have as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 things that are hanging out that may or may not make its way into the bill so that we're at least all on the same page of what we've got to work on over the next week or two. So that's my goal for this next hour. Damien's in the chair again. Thank you and welcome back. Starting on S326, and I think we're going to be able to at least skip the first 6 sections. I have not gotten an update on what that version of House, I forgot to write it on this part. What was House, whatever number, whether that's passed.
H549.
H549.
Yeah, I think it was.
So
Finding our, where was it? It's in.
yesterday it was read for a third time and passed in concurrence. So assuming there is not a vote to reconsider this morning, that will go to the governor. Because I do not believe that they made any amendments to the House version. So I think it is.
It is the same bill that would cover the first 6 sections that are identical language in S326.
Oh, that's
Pretty
right,
thin there,
'cause
getting out of
it's also
prison,
another
getting a
bill
license.
in another committee.
Helping, yeah, get a license, a permit, a learner's permit, and then for the detainees to make sure they have the documentation to get it once they're,
We don't have to.
we might be able to drop sections 1 through 6,
Yeah.
but we're holding them until that stage. Right, but it
Yeah.
sounds like we're pretty close to being able to eventually be able to make a motion to take them out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
So
we're still leaving them for now. Right?
Yeah.
yeah, and just for the record, I'm Damien Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. There are some small pieces of that bill that you will want to keep, or small pieces of sections 1 through 6 that you'll want to keep in. So if we pull up,
There's some technical changes in updating the language.
yeah, so in section 1, subsections A through K are technical changes. And so you'll want to keep those in. So that's the first 2 pages through line 19 on the second page, and then you can omit the rest.
Recommendation to keep section 1,
Section 1,
A through K.
yeah,
Lines 8 through.
through page 2, line 19, I think. That should be
Got it.
the ellipses. Yeah, line 19 on page 2.
And then we could remove the rest.
That's right.
I suppose we could do whatever we want, but the recommendation from the legislative council is.
Yeah.
Okay,
You can do exactly what you want. Those changes on the first page and a half were those were technical corrections proposed by DMV prior to H549 starting to move.
okay.
All right. So that brings us to section 7.
Which is page 11.
Page 11 starts on line 4. This is the insufficient funds provision. So it expands the current authority to suspend a license or registration if an individual fails to pay the amount in full after their initial form of payment is rejected. From just checks to electronic funds transfers or credit or debit charges as well. And so the department, I believe, testified on this, that as the forms of payment are changing, they are occasionally running into instances where initially the charge clears, but then when all the funds get reconciled in the account comes up insufficient and it comes back. They do currently provide about 30 days for folks to where they provide notice and then allow folks to make the payment within that 30 days before they take action.
And recall if there was any concerns about this piece? Are there comments or questions about that?
I think it's just logical, thinking it up in today's world, how we do business. Yeah.
I guess I would ask, are we thumbs up on section 7 to stay in?
Mhm.
Okay, so,
I just wondered,
yep, Representative Burke?
yes, I'm sorry, I'm just going to here. So we have 30 days before the suspension of the license. And then how is notice given, written notice?
Written notice, it depends on how the individual, what information they have for contact. They can send emails, they can send a notice on the MyDMV account, they can send notice by mail. So it really depends on how the individual receives their notices from the department.
Just thinking of somebody who might be moving around or whatever, you know.
And I think Deputy Commissioner Russo or Commissioner Collier have both answered a lot of questions about how they're providing the notice. And this would essentially continue the existing practices for bounce checks, just applying them to electronic charges. So they are not proposing any changes to how they notify folks and try to get those funds paid.
I do have a note that says that the law says 15 days, but their practice is to give them at least 30 days. And that they both forward it on mail and in the MyDMV account, if they have one.
Okay, so
That was the testimony that I have from Deputy Commissioner Russo. But if we're comfortable with that.
Comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just a different argument or discussion. This is just adding to what.
Right, that's not covered in this
Yeah.
section. That is in a different section in
Yeah,
the law.
yeah.
That's not under
Yeah.
23 VSA 110, section 7. That is
Yeah.
covered in a different section, so we don't even have that portion in the bill, but they did testify to what that other section said.
yeah, there are
This
other,
adds another piece of today's financial.
right, there are other general provisions regarding if you're going to suspend a license and requirements for hearings and so forth. Yeah, especially if an individual disputes the reason for the suspension. So for example, if they show the funds going out to the department, but the department doesn't show them being received, there is a process for a hearing officer and that sort of thing to review the case.
Representative Burke, are you all set?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, then we're gonna go to section 8.
Section 8 is the stuckage section.
Bingo.
Yep. I'm saying that just to, help you get bingo every week, Representative Couch. So this is the increase in the penalties for an oversized vehicle in Smuggler's Notch. From 1 to 10,000 for violating the prohibition on oversized vehicles in the Notch, and from 2,000 to 20,000 if you get stuck in the Notch and impede the flow of traffic. And then a second or subsequent violation within a 3-year period continues to be a double penalty. We did talk about whether there were potential issues with this penalty being cruel and unusual under the Constitution. Given the substantial cost to the state and the local responders, my opinion is that legally there's a solid argument that this is not an unduly large penalty in comparison to the cost that the violation incurs for the surrounding communities. That's to say that you could still have a challenge. A court might see things differently from me, but I think in this case, there's a substantial relationship between the size of the penalty and the size of the harm to the local area if you choose to keep it in. That said, the amount is always a policy decision, even if it's legally defensible.
Remember?
I was just thinking, I mean, I'm all for the penalty. I think it's ridiculous that people keep doing this, but I was thinking of, somebody who's working for a trucking company, that's one thing. Somebody who might have their own truck, an independent trucker, not very, well-resourced. I don't know, I guess that they could appeal that or something, that it was, they just didn't have the money to pay that at all, but nobody defends me. I didn't see the signs, I didn't see
It's impossible to understand now.
I mean, I don't mean I want to change the penalty, but I'm just bringing that up.
Yeah, I don't know what the plan is with the signs. I know that there was some discussion about whether with the new higher penalty, whether that penalty will go on the sign as an additional sort of thing to catch folks' eyes if they've driven around the chicane and continued up into the notch.
Representative Duff?
Yeah, I'm okay with this, I think. But where does it say which vehicles are allowed and which ones don't? It's not.
Let me pull that up for you. It's actually the subsection before that was omitted.
I assume really good signage, so you might get a RV, somebody with an RV and, how do they know they're not allowed, I guess? Other than can't get through the chicanery.
Chicanery.
What do they call those roads?
Chicanery.
What is what they call?
Chicane, yeah.
They did put up chicane.
It's so obvious.
There's a lot of
I can't
opportunity
imagine.
for.
I don't know.
I went through it last year.
Just get it.
You missed this. Yes. Unbelievable.
Okay.
But is it, it's gotta be more than just, if you get through this, you're okay.
So first, here's the language in the statute. So single frame vehicles over 40 feet in length or tractor units with one or more attached trailers over 45 feet in total length are prohibited. So that is just omitted from the draft there. And then the agency can also close 108 during periods of winter weather, which they do with a gate. So there's no worry there about folks missing the gate. It'll be closed. They would have to drive through it. As far as the signage goes, just see here. May actually have a photo of it for you. So the agency has several pictures of the notch on their website of stuckages over the years. They do not have a picture of the sign. Let me see if I can get that for you.
So the signs would say the same thing, it says a tractor and certain length, and then a solid truck of a certain length.
Mhm.
So based on that, it looks like with a pickup truck and a 30-foot RV, you could go.
Yes, at a certain size, you could.
Could be a good driver.
A little short, that make it through. Big bed that way.
You could.
So
With your other camper, now you have a big fancy new one, you can't get through there.
Well,
Like no matter, it's 20 minutes, pocket change to me, it'll be like you're saying.
so the Google Maps view of Vermont 108 does not clearly show the electronic sign there or what's on it. It shows blank, but if you're, and it was taken before the chicanes were installed. But you can see here from the picture that the sign is over here on the right-hand side of the road. And then this is from where the middle of where the chicane is right now. So you would have to navigate that and miss a flashing sign past the notch there. And then if you do go to the AOT website, you'll see photos like this. This guy here, that one.
Oh, he deserves that.
I'm gonna go around corners, good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. look at this.
The bus, and then the car that makes it through. But I mean, you'll notice I think
Right on the road.
most folks here have probably driven the notch at some point. You know, it gets narrow in spots there to the point where even regular cars have to take turns.
There's even a flashing sign at the bottom that says, this route is shut down from this date to this date.
Mhm.
And then as you get closer, individual signs.
Yeah. But anyway, that,
So I guess my question was, is it clear for people who can go and who can't go?
so there is a sign, there's a chicane at either end.
There's multiple signs.
Yeah,
I mean, multiple.
Yeah.
But
yeah, there,
what specifically says will or won't fit, there is a picture of different type of signs in one spot that says you will not make it. And there's a big red, with the stop piece.
yeah. And the GPS is,
From either side, there's no less than six. There's no less than six
Back.
warnings.
Right.
yeah,
No return.
There's a warning on the interstate in St.
Yeah,
Albans,
yeah.
all the way, and
There's
one in the
warning,
interstate
one in
on the,
Bolton.
yes.
yeah. And the trucking GPSs now route folks around, but if you use like the Google Maps on your phone, it assumes you're driving a regular car and it does not. So that's, I think, the testimony that I heard on this is that we're down to from about 6 or 7 a year down to about 1. So they're still occurring, but it's rare. Now,
That's all fine with Kurt if you want.
the hope is that this will bring it from 1 to 0.
The media attention of that. Representative White and then Representative Burke.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did earlier. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. You're up.
Okay, thank you. So couple questions. Should we consider putting any language in there to make sure the signage is clear and updated regarding the dramatic increase in penalties?
That's up to you. The section already requires that the agency shall erect signs conforming to the standards established by section 1025 of this title to indicate the closures and restrictions authorized under this section. So I don't know if they're planning to update the signs immediately with the new penalties, but they are already required to post these restrictions on the way to and from.
So I wouldn't think I don't think it would be a bad thing for us to just put a sentence in there to say the signage needs to be updated with the new penalties prior to the new penalties being enforced. Another thought, and I think we've brought this up before, but would we want to consider asking DMV to be in touch with these truck routing software companies to make sure that
Truck routing GPS is already routing trucks around
it
it.
is, okay, so
Yeah.
that is covered, okay. And then the last question, I don't have any notes that we took any testimony on this? Like, would we want to talk to a law enforcement person or somebody who has dealt with this situation? I think we have a general understanding of what happens and what a train wreck it is, but just whether we wanted to bring somebody in on that.
I mean, I think at minimum, we can just maybe just have somebody, not even testify, but email us, because I think they give one example where this happened in the last year, just what the cost was.
And
Yeah,
the,
just like a
Say
schedule.
$1,006.
Took this much time, you know, displaced X amount of drivers, cost this much money.
you may also want to hear from DMV what their plans are around that. Are they planning to replace the sign? You know, so that, because if they're already in the process of getting that ready, that could tell you when the sign will be up, et cetera, and you can decide whether you want additional language at that point.
Representative Case?
I think it'd be kind of fun too for the committee is bring in one of the truck drivers that actually got stuck.
Oh, gosh.
He probably doesn't want to show us
I'm sure they never want to come to the.
What were you thinking?
Okay, I would say then we're not ready to close out section E. If that's what people are saying, or people want to hear more,
I
Representative.
just want to
What?
question to dig in. Did you say something about there is signage there now, but it doesn't say like currently the penalty,
The-
whatever it is that
the-
posted somewhere?
The
Right now?
photo online, unfortunately, the sign nearest the notch, and I don't know where the other signs are well enough in my head to find them quickly for you on the street view. It's also a few years out of date because it predates the installation of the chicanes. But just the photo online happened to catch that sign at a point where you can't make out what it says because it's one of the electronic signs where the message flashes and changes.
So maybe
um,
we do that, you know.
but
what does that
DMV
say?
DMV can tell
Might
you.
already say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as the chair mentioned, there are signs that show further down the Notch Road as you're coming in. It's not like you get one sign, you have multiple spots you have to drive past, and it's from both directions too.
Field trip.
Yeah.
I will pursue at least a comment or two from either the agency or the DMV.
It's one of those key vehicles, a small one.
What their plans are. Representative Case?
I say we do a field trip and we'll bring a shovel and we'll bring a sign with us. We'll put it in.
I like field trips. Field trip. Okay.
Section 9.
Section 9.
Yes. So section 9 is the salvage title. And this is the updates for the provisions related to transfer to an insurance company for a total loss. So after they've paid damages,
Oh, yeah. Oh, DMV is not responding.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
so this would provide that the supporting documents to transfer ownership to the insurer would not require a notarized signature, could be signed electronically and could be printed on a hard copy. We define signed electronically. As I mentioned in my earlier testimony, this definition combines Vermont's general definition of an electronic signature with the federal security requirements for this, which is this lengthy standard down here. And then supporting documents include bills of sale, title documents, odometer disclosures, and powers of attorney. And then I believe there was some question about the language here requiring an insurer to indemnify and hold harmless the department for any claims arising out of the issuance of a certificate of title pursuant to this section. I think there was a question about whether that might be too broad and whether it should be specific to the subsection, which is subsection B. But I don't know. I think you've had
That is.
Additional
that
testimony.
particular last section C is still under discussion back and forth between the people that we had testify and the DMV, and it's currently waiting on an answer from the DMV whether they support the requested change to the language. I would ask for today anyway, is there any other concerns in the sections from anyone? Or any other needs to hear from anything else? We can't close this section out because there is still work on that particular section, but is there anything else? I don't want to, if we are going to need to revisit more, is there more to revisit? Is there any other concerns about the rest of it? We're all good on that, other than it's not settled, but we're not going to dig into any more of it other than section C. We're going to get an agreement between parties that have been interested and involved so far. Okay, so section 10, which I think runs sort of 10, 11, and 12, I have a note that they run together.
They do. So section 10 is motor vehicle titles. So if you have lose the certificate of title or have it stolen or otherwise damaged so that it's no longer legible, you can get a duplicate title. This clarifies that if you are at a DMV location, that title can be hand delivered to you. My understanding is this is current practice, but that the statute requires them to mail it to you, despite you being able to receive it in person. So this would just clarify that they can legally hand deliver it to you at a DMV location. Yep. Section 11 is a technical correction to the definition of title or certificate of title for the vessels, snowmobiles, and ATVs chapter, which originally the definition only applied to vessels, but as that chapter was updated, there are now certificates of title for snowmobiles and ATVs. They were just never added to the definition, so this is just updating that. And then section 12 does the same, hand delivery of duplicate titles for vessels, snowmobiles, and ATVs.
I have to say, I have 4 notes on this section, other than I wasn't clear if this is, they want to be able to handle it to them there, or they are currently handing it to them and they would like to, reflecting that that's what the law says. I don't have a
They
note.
said they were in
That's
for
what,
them.
that was what our vice chair says, that he remembered, so I did not make a note for whatever reason that day. Are we codifying existing practice, or are we actually, they want to be able to hand it to them? I just don't know. I couldn't remember you saying that it is what they're doing today and they would like to codify current practice.
I don't have notes.
I'm not by my house, I just thought that's what.
That's what you guys both remember the same way, so that's the way I'm good with that, but I want to make sure everybody else.
I don't have any notes that the DMV spoke, and I just had a note that it's fixing a previous oversight, but
That's what I wasn't, but
Yeah, so the existing practice that I had actually heard from members of this committee. So I would defer to all of you on whether that's accurate. But that was my understanding from you. In either event, it avoids having to have a legal requirement to mail it if you're present at the DMV location.
I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I don't want to feel like anybody didn't get due. So are we okay with this section? Thumbs up for most everybody or not? Close enough or not?
I mean, I guess my question is whether we'd want to clarify that this is current practice or whether this is allowing them to hand deliver, which they weren't doing before.
From a drafting standpoint, that's usually something that's best done as part of the floor report, just explaining, because the statute, remember, this is like a document moving forward. And so you might do that in like an intent or finding section if you had one. But in this case, this is what they're just going to look at in the future to say, what am I allowed to do? So I wouldn't put in current practice here, but you may want to confirm that for the floor report, as long as you're okay with this being in the law.
I don't think that's what Representative Lloyd was saying. She was just saying SDMV for our own benefit.
Yeah.
Whether or not.
Oh, right.
Okay.
I misunderstood. But yeah,
Yeah.
that would make
Yeah.
sense. And then for the floor report, getting that clarification from them helps.
So we want additional info, but it doesn't change the section is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That's a thumbs up then for everybody.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
Section 13 clarifies the location of title appeals. The main clarification here is that DMV's counsel asked that we clarify that the appeal goes to the civil division. Because right now it could be either the civil or criminal division of the Superior Court. Functionally, the criminal division would refer the case to the civil division because they don't have jurisdiction over civil matters. But this clarifies it in the statutes. You don't end up at the Barry Courthouse when you should be at the Montpelier Courthouse.
Pretty clerical. Thumbs up for this section. We're good. All right.
Okay. Section 14. This is the abandoned motor vehicles. And it gets to certificates of title. And this provides that certain vehicles are exempt from needing a certificate of title. So, and the proposal here was to split these out into 3 different subdivisions just to help with clarity because it was a long run-on sentence. So the 3 types under this particular subdivision that are exempt from a requirement for a certificate of title are vehicles owned by a manufacturer dealer that are being held for sale, where you're moving them basically down the highway to get from a storage lot to the dealership or back again. For example, before a test drive or something like that. The second is vehicles used by an educational institution approved by the Agency of Education for driver training purposes. And the third is vehicles used by a manufacturer solely for testing. And this is all existing law, just breaking it out into subdivisions.
Anybody questions? There's not much there to change. Are we good? Thumbs up to okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And pardon me if this came up before, but so used by an educational institution approved by the Agency of Education for driver training purposes does not need to have a title. So is that like a driver's ed
This would be,
car driving around the?
yeah, so in your district, this could be like Harwood Union. If they had a car that was specifically for the driver's ed program offered by the school, they're not required to have a certificate of title for that car. The car is supposed to be it has to be registered, but they don't have to have a certificate of title. I'm not sure what the history of that section is.
That's nice.
And we're not changing that. That's the law as it is today.
Right,
We're not
right,
actually
right,
changing
right.
that. We are, in this particular thing, all we are doing is changing how the section is
Right.
written. But if you want to get into that piece at a future side supplement effort, I'm not discouraging it.
Interesting to know why. That's all.
Wandering the world.
Like your auto insurance is the car. Maybe it's done for driving. So they never got titles to that.
Yeah, and this may date back to a different era too.
Right,
But yeah,
in the day,
Very well could be, yeah. Should be something like it's off the wall.
you can't see a car not having a title.
right. Section 15 is the towing for abandoned vehicles from public property. The first change is increasing the fee from $125 to $250. And then the second is allowing the Agency of Transportation, if it's already paid for the tow, to receive reimbursement up to $250. So right now, the towing companies can go to the DMV to get reimbursement up to $125. This would allow them to go up to $250, and it would also allow AOT to pay for the tow of a vehicle from a state right of way, and then go to the DMV to have money paid out of the funding that's set aside for towing vehicles, abandoned vehicles from public property. that part essentially amounts to just accounting work internally. Questions?
What?
So, I mean, this sounds like an interagency transfer kind of situation. Don't they do this all the time?
So right now, my understanding is that right now there's AOT would need to direct the towing company to go to DMV to get reimbursement for that tow. And my understanding from the testimony was that they have had some trouble getting towing companies to come out to do these tows. And so they're hoping that this will allow them to pay the towing company up front and then make that interagency transfer after the fact.
Just kind of speed up the process.
And to get better response from towing companies. I think there's they testified as to some increased incidences of abandoned vehicles in on public property or on rights of way. And this is separate from if you have an accident or a disabled vehicle. This does not apply to that.
That definition, it doesn't, because when they were throwing out those figures, how did they do here? I thought it sort of awesome.
Their figures may have included those.
Yeah.
But an abandoned vehicle doesn't include like a vehicle that's been disabled by the side of the road.
So they wouldn't be eligible.
Unless the owner of the vehicle leaves the vehicle behind. And then if you are disabled and you call the state troopers to come assist, that is not covered under this because the vehicle owner is there to pay for the tow.
Is there anything prohibiting the towers from adding on? They get their $250 but still charge if they track down a person?
So right now, if they have to store the vehicle,
Well, I know stores, that's different, but I'm talking about just for the towing and not the $250. Anything prohibiting that, or is they just, that's all they can get?
can you take a look?
My understanding is this section is about when there is no accident or insurance company or physical.
All right, so that's
spot.
just.
This is about the truly abandoned, no owner or insurance claim or piece.
All right.
This is that late of the, come get this vehicle.
All right, so that's what I know.
There is,
That's my understanding. That is, I'm just saying that's the way it might be.
yeah, there are some provisions in there, if I remember right, as far as,
Park and ride, call from the agency, come get this thing out, or from the state police, come get this.
Yeah.
They need to be paid, but we also heard that obviously that whole situation down is this abandoned, trailers and stuff, campers, they're really wicked expensive. This doesn't cover that. Got enough money for that.
Yeah.
Representative Burke?
Well, we talked about this before, of this abandoned trailer, I guess it was on private property adjacent to the state right of way. And does the person not have the money to move it? And the V-Trans, I think, eventually moved it. I don't know whether the town of Brattleboro is technically in the town line of Brattleboro, right at the Guilford line. I think the town of Brattleboro might have contributed some money. I'm not sure, and I don't know whether V-Trans got money from DMV or what, because it was private property, no.
yeah, with private property, it's under the statute, it's supposed to be the private property owner who pays for the tow. And so that can be a problem, but an abandoned vehicle is defined as,
I mean,
A
it was sort of
vehicle-
abandoned because somebody left it there.
yeah,
And it
it's
was. an
more than
eyesore.
48 hours.
Yeah.
Without the consent of the person who owns the property or is in control of the right of way. It's defined as abandoned under our statutes, not including construction vehicles and other vehicles like that may remain stored in the right of way. And then the removal of the abandoned vehicles requires a law enforcement officer for the public entity to contact the towing service or either a law enforcement officer or the landowner for private property. And then There's a certification of abandoned motor vehicle that goes on where they have to contact the DMV to certify the abandoned vehicle. This way, if someone, what happens occasionally is that the vehicle's stolen. And so this allows it to basically go into a centralized database where you can hopefully, if it's a stolen vehicle, you can link the owner of the vehicle with their vehicle at that point. And then there's the opportunity, if the vehicle is truly abandoned at this point, for the towing company to dispose of the abandoned motor vehicle to recover their remaining costs of storage, et cetera, beyond the reimbursement rate. There's also a process in the middle for identification and reclamation if the individual whose vehicle it was. So for example, if a vehicle's stolen and then driven several towns away and abandoned there and then found at some point in the future and towed, there's the opportunity at that point. If the vehicle's been reported stolen, the abandoned vehicle gets reported to DMV. DMV communicates with law enforcement and is able to link the owner up with their vehicle, which hopefully can be salvaged, although oftentimes they're in a rough state at that point. But there is a whole process around this. This just gets to funding and fees for towing from public property, which was an effort to offset some of the costs that have arisen around this. And you raised these fees about 4 years ago, I think. And the request downstairs was that they get raised again because they're still having trouble getting towing companies to make these tows.
Are we comfortable with this section? Do not, or we want something more we want to hear? Are we thumbs up then? Right, so, still good.
Right. All right, section 16 is a technical change in numbering to the diesel fuel tax. It is renumbering a bunch of subdivisions to try to break things up by subject matter into different subdivisions and subsections. There is no substantive change to the language. It is just renumbering like you see here.
Everybody good? Thumbs it up.
All right, section 17. This is an increase to the penalty for operating a snowmobile that does not have a valid registration or a trail access decal, right? Or TMA, trail maintenance authorization. I can't remember. Assessment. There we go. I'm gonna get this right because it's a
Snowmobiling days.
yeah. Is it a TMA for snowmobiles and a TAD for ATVs, right? I think. But anyway, this increases it to a civil penalty of $450 from $135, and then $500 for a second or subsequent offense within a 3-year period. It was requested by VAST. The testimony that I recall on this was that the current penalty is close enough to the actual registration and decal costs that folks are opting not to get them and basically take the risk of getting a citation. So this would increase the citation amount to above the cost. And I understand that the hope is that folks will register their snowmobiles.
I did have a note on this, sorry. In other words, how many tickets, and you asked VAST to come back with how many tickets and how many over the years and how much of a trend of how much this is actually an issue. Do we need that or not?
No, I don't need to vote, man. I was just curious of what we're trying to, let's say fix or accommodate. At the end of the day, that doesn't. Not gonna change my opinion of supporting it. I was just, how many scoff laws are there?
There's a few. I ran into a few, yeah. Yeah.
Represent what?
Damien, can you just clarify, so the different fees, so, there's $135 fee.
That's the current penalty, and you see
Okay.
we're striking the operation of an unregistered snowmobile from the list of violations. Right there on line 11.
Okay, so 135 is the current fee.
Yeah,
Where this recommends to change it to $450
that's right.
for the first offense and $500 for the second offense.
Yeah,
Okay, and that's for not having a pass or season
Yeah.
pass or a,
yeah. So it's a registration. You're required to be registered in Vermont or in your home state. And then if you're in either case, you're required to have a trail maintenance assessment decal that basically says that you paid your share of the trail maintenance.
exactly, so you either have your season pass, which is your trail maintenance.
And you should have valid registration.
And I think you need that in order to get your
Right.
pass. And so it's either the season's pass or the 25-day pass or the 3-day
Right.
pass, which in all instances, from what I understood, require you to show registration and insurance in order to get that pass.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Okay. And so the $135 is gonna go away.
Yeah. that's-
$135 violation is, the fine for not having the registration is no longer going to be 135. It's going to be
There are other.
450. The reason you see it written the way it is because
Yeah, that makes sense.
after the struck through language on line 11 is a list of several other offenses that also carry a $135 penalty. Those are omitted behind the ellipses that is below that. So that $135 penalty is staying on the books, but for other violations. Yeah,
What's in D,
Okay,
E, and F?
Okay.
Just an example.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Actually, D, E, and F are different penalty amounts for a whole list of other violations.
We're not touching those.
Yeah.
We are, that's all hidden by the ellipses here. So in Title 23, we have a number of sections where there is a long unnumbered list of violations under a subsection. In this case, it just happened to be the first violation on the list. In other cases, you might have seen an ellipses above and below this.
so those 3 stars are red as an ellipses.
Yeah,
So what's 3202? What's that whole?
that's the requirement that you have valid registration in Vermont or another state and the TMA.
I'm just saying now that, so there's more to that crossed out. Why isn't the TMA crossed out too? Because that's going down to section G there, right now.
Let me just pull up the section.
Yeah, I'm already confusing myself, but
Yep,
I'm crossing,
that's fine.
registered.
It'll be easier if I show you the section to just
Yeah.
explain the whole thing.
Yeah.
So. Share the new screen.
No, but I want to. Make sure you. Where we're at.
All right, so this is what 3207 looks like. So A is a $35 penalty for failure to return a transferred registration, operation of defective equipment, sale of snowmobile for operation without required equipment, operation by a person under 16, failure to display your registration plate. B is $55, so going on a public highway or in cemeteries, etc. And all of these include additional provisions. So for example, on the public highway pieces, you can cross perpendicular, but you can't drive down it, that sort of thing. So and then the 135, so you can see here's what we're striking is this line. So after the change that's proposed in the bill, it'll say a civil penalty of 135 for violation of 3205A, et cetera. So all of these items. And then we're also omitting the $300 violations, the $500 violations, and the $1,000 violations. And then we're adding in the $450 violation, and the order is not great.
No,
But for
but yeah, my
purposes of-
question is, I understand why we're crossing out the unregistered and moving it to new sections. How come we're not crossing out the TAM? I'm sure that has a current fine that's less than.
The TAM is covered under 3202.
So
So,
that's same, 135.
yeah.
I
Yep.
thought that was increasing too.
So 3202 is the registration and TMA decal required.
Okay,
And so violation of not having either is this violation. So that
so
constitutes
that's the highest
violation.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So why doesn't
there,
that cross out for the one, I mean, I'll let it go.
no, there,
When they go across that one.
there's only, so the way it's worded there, the 3202, they say unregistered snowmobile.
Yeah,
But that same section includes the TMA decal. So if you see here, this is 3202.
correct. And you're crossing out the unregistered one, or no, that's not what it is.
Yep. So there, I don't believe there's a reference to the TMA specifically.
That's what I was confused about. I thought there was
Here.
a reference in there within that.
Yeah, so right now there's the unregistered snowmobile. It references 3202, but I think just make sure. Yeah, it's just the one reference. So the difference is when they put in the shorthand here,
Yeah,
they didn't say operation of an unregistered snowmobile or snowmobile without a TMA.
all right.
Yeah,
So it's all one and the same, all right.
yeah. So it's all one and the same.
That should be a technical change.
So in the draft that you've got, the new language, let's see. The new language just says a person who violates the provisions of section 3202 of this chapter. And the reason I wrote it that way is so I wouldn't have to spell out by operating a vehicle, a snowmobile that doesn't have a valid registration or TMA. But I could fill in the provisions of section 3202 of this chapter
Well, I'm
require.
saying if they're going to look at that, it's gonna make no mention of tame, is what I'm saying. So how would you know that you're in violation?
Because this is just the penalty. This is not
Correct.
telling you the violation. The violation is set out in 3202.
But it's not, so if it says tame, you just had it all on there, I didn't see anything that said tame. Did you? No? Or am I missing something?
No, yeah, I'm not, I know that we're hitting the noon and we'll have commitment. I am saying we can pick up from
Yeah.
here with this other speech
Okay.
or not, or so we can make it a little.
Yeah, I'm just
So,
overlooking.
It says, basically it says, an individual shall be subject to a penalty of $450 if they violate section 3202. 3202 says a person shall not operate a snowmobile in the state unless it is registered and numbered and displays a valid Vermont TMA decal.
So it's an A, I was looking at.
Yeah, sorry, it's right here. So it's in A of 3202. And then for whatever reason, when they drafted Title 23, the penalties, and I think this was to try to keep all the penalties in one section so that when you're updating them, you wouldn't have to update dozens of sections. Back when we used to do the miscellaneous motor vehicle or transportation fee bill as a third bill, this would, I think that's what it dates back to.
Sure, so when they broke it out further, they just didn't add the.
They didn't have the
They should've.
TMA decal. They should have, yes.
I'm not a lawyer, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so.
That's something we should
But
look out.
it doesn't change the underlying law, and now it says, the old language used to say operation without valid registration or unregistered snowmobile, and now I just say a violation of 3202, so you need to look back at what 3202
I'm just
requires.
saying, we're breaking out these paragraphs for the sake of breaking them out. Should we just add that there?
If you wanted to do that, we could, we could essentially add in for this here, where it says a person who violates the provisions of section 3202, and then I could insert after chapter requiring snowmobile to have a valid registration and Vermont trail maintenance assessment decal.
I think that'd be more clear.
Okay,
I mean, I don't know, that's just me.
Frank has his privilege, Representative Basil.
I will say that you can't get a TMA without having it registered and then signing a thing saying that you have insurance. They won't even give it to you. You gotta go online and you gotta upload your a copy of your registration. And I think you have a box you have to check certifying that you have insurance, because you will not get the TMA without it. So maybe that's why
So maybe you don't need a head.
I just.
Representative McCoy wants that.
3202A of this chapter, because 3202A is the registration and decal requirement.
so
Is it?
it's 3202B. Yeah, 3202B has the registration period. 3202C, D. Their 3202E provides special decal exemptions. So for example, there are portions of the state trail system where you don't need to have a TMA. And then there are signs on the trails that say TMA required beyond this point. So I would leave it as 3202
Okay,
because there are, for example, in Essex County, there is a distance of approximately 18 miles to and from the New Hampshire border to the village of Beecher Falls in the town of Canaan via the vast trails. So that little spot there where you go from, trying to remember the name of the, it's not Colebrook, it's West Stewartstown, thank you. They're cross into Canaan and go up to Beecher Falls. There's a section in Addison, Bennington, and Rutland counties. The Delaware and Hudson Rail Trail. There's a 13-mile section. There's a corridor trail for, yeah, so there are a bunch of these little call outs where you don't need a TMA. And so I think I would keep it as 3202.
Yeah, that looks good, I moved that.
Yeah.
Are we okay with this entire
You want-
section or not?
Do you want to add the clarifying language or just?
No, I'm good enough on that.
Okay.
Casey said you can't get one without the other, I'm good with that.
All right.
Okay, so we're saying we are thumbs up to this section
Second.
17. We're okay with that. Nobody wants to hear any more. That's how you get things done. Do it on Friday. I do want to throw out for we are going to wrap up and we are throwing out for the committee. As far as the miscellaneous motor vehicle bill, it's not an inclusive list, but I have we still have the Southworth Amendment consideration. There's a request about ending the temporary paper registrations coming from the DMV about possibly adding. We know that there's still a discussion about motorcycle, the mufflers in section 39 or whatever it is. The last piece, that's still on the rate 29 on the later. There is the language on the salvage title that hasn't been decided. There is a push from the city of Burlington regarding a sunset on the cameras, which may or may not be handled in the judiciary and whether we will or won't deal with that. There's 3 requests from the DMV, one related to the abstinence program, one related to DUI versus drugs, because of can't be in the absence of drugs doesn't work. They want an update there that's not in the bill now. They might want to add. There's the commercial texting language that we heard about earlier this week. So there's 3 of those. That is not all inclusive because there's still more testimony to take on inspections. Still have an A&R in and the notes from today. So that's about 12 or 14 things that are all hanging out that I've got on my list of things to nail down for the DMV bill. The T-bill, not only you're going to remember all those, but that's what we have up against us. And then the T-bill, I would say, that did pass out of the Senate Transportation yesterday and is in the Senate calendar today. We'll go to finance. I suspect there'll be some significant changes there, but there are 4 major areas that we will be facing, which is they put purchase and use and the dealing with purchase and use in the T-bill where we had it in the miscellaneous tax bill. So and they went with the step down approach that was more to the Representative Keiser's bill or more towards the governor's recommendation. They went after the pilot funds, both the surplus and the annual funds, in a much aggressive 3/4 of that money. And that's part of the bill. That's a pretty significant piece. They also have added a 2% on jet fuel piece in the bill, and mileage-based user fee includes a program to do it, well, for electric vehicles, to put it off a little bit there, but to stage all vehicles by 2031. So there's major changes to those 4 areas. That is not an all-inclusive list, but I can tell you that that's at least from my perspective, the biggest 4 topics of what's currently the difference between the T-bill and our House version.
Yeah, it's the first 55 pages of the bill, essentially, is those 4 items.
So that's what we'll be working on when we dive in next week. Trains next week on Thursday, train day, where we have a House Committee of Transportation and Senate have a special invite for lunch on the train. It's on
Cool.
Thursday. And Aviation Day is coming, which I haven't heard anything update recently, which we'll have quite a bit on that day for when that comes. And
Get a plane ride?
there is a field trip being developed with the Commerce Committee headed over to Rutland and down towards Bennington, Florida. That's cool. Are you have a question?
Well, just on further testimony related to inspections, I'm wondering if the DMV can share more detail of what they heard from the constituents or from the community in their efforts they did following up on last year's DMV bill. Like where they were, taking in public comments on inspections. We heard, I think, briefly about that, but it'd be great to get more detail in terms of what specifically they heard.
Yeah, because there was the email address and the public testimony.
Yeah, there was an email address that was set up, to my understanding, that where people could share feedback on inspections. Yeah.
I'm just pointing out, there are a bunch of bills on the wall regarding inspections. I'm just wondering if we want to review any of those while we're continuing to have this inspection discussion from what's in the DMV bill. And then I wanted to review the very important emojis for our skit on Thursday before people go home.
So are there any other comments on the miscellaneous or the DM or the T-bill?
Just gave it all away.
We are adjourned. We are